You know what the biggest mistake homeowners make when they need HVAC work done? It's not hiring the cheapest company or buying the wrong brand. It's something almost everybody does, and it's probably not what you're thinking. We're gonna get there. But first, let me tell you about a call I went on not too long ago. A homeowner needed a third opinion on her furnace. The furnace was 7 years old. The first company had been out for a routine maintenance visit, just a tune-up, and somewhere during that visit, they told her the heat exchanger was cracked. Carbon monoxide risk. Quoted her just over $4,000. She called a second company. Same diagnosis, same number. Then they hit her with the line.
At this point, honestly, you're almost better off putting that money toward a new system.
Honestly, I'm not saying both companies were wrong. That was possible. But I wanted to see it for myself. And to understand how she ended up there in the first place, we have to go back a little further. Think about your grandparents for a second. If their furnace quit working, they didn't jump on Google. They didn't check Yelp. They walked across the street.
Who did yours?
Call Jim. Tell him I sent you.
And that was enough, because Jim knew that if he did bad work, the whole neighborhood was going to hear about it by the weekend. Reputation moved through communities in a way that was really hard to fake. You couldn't buy 5-star reviews. You couldn't flood Google with testimonials. You either did good work or people found out. Back then, a new central AC installation might run you somewhere around $2,000 or $3,000 installed. Today, that same conversation can easily be several times that, depending on your system and where you live. At that price, you need to do a little more homework than just asking next door. But this is where everything changed. Since 2022, private equity has acquired nearly 800 HVAC, plumbing, and electrical companies across the country. 800. The name on the truck stays the same. The ownership, the culture, the people making decisions behind the scenes, those can look completely different. There are companies that were incredible 20 years ago. Family-owned, great reputation, then ownership changed, same trucks, same logo on the side of the van. Completely different company underneath. And I'm not here to villainize anyone. There are good operators in that space, same as there always have been, but it's worth understanding what you're actually dealing with before you call. Word of mouth is still one of the best places to start. Just don't let it be where your research ends. So, if you can't just go off word of mouth, where do you actually start? Most people go to reviews. And that's the right instinct, just probably not the way most people actually use them. Because most people look at the stars. You're not looking for praise, you're looking for patterns. Go through the negative reviews, not just one, but 20, and see if the same thing keeps coming up.
They pushed me toward replacing something that didn't need to be replaced.
Nobody followed up after the installation.
The price was completely different once they got there.
One bad review is a bad day. The same complaints showing up is revealing how the company operates. And it's worth knowing, about 90% of consumers check online reviews before hiring someone for home services, which means companies pay very close attention to this. The FTC has taken enforcement action against businesses that plant fake positive reviews. So if a company has 200 5-star reviews that all read like a press release, that's worth a second look. Here's what I'd actually do. Look at how the company responds to the bad ones. That tells you just as much. What you actually want to see is someone writing, "He walked me through exactly what was wrong," or "They gave me options and let me decide." Once you've got a name you're considering, spend 10 minutes on it. How long have they been in business in this area? And if the ownership has changed, how long has the current ownership actually been running it? Do they service and maintain what they install? Because there's a big difference between a company that installs your system and one that actually takes care of it afterward. You want the one that calls you in the fall, shows up for your tune-up, and is still answering the phone 2 or 3 years down the road when something comes up. Do they educate, or do they just sell? Keep that in the back of your mind, we're going to come back to it. Remember that question from the beginning?
You know what the biggest mistake homeowners make when they need HVAC work done?
Here's the answer. Most homeowners spend hours researching the equipment and almost no time researching the person who's actually going to install it. Why does that matter so much? Because according to the Department of Energy, more than 65% of residential HVAC systems are improperly installed. Improper refrigerant charge, bad airflow, duct connections that aren't sealed, those kinds of installation problems can increase your energy bills by 20 to 30% every month. Think about that for a second. You could buy the best unit on the market, and if the person putting it in doesn't know what they're doing or just doesn't care, you're going to spend more money, have more problems. The equipment isn't really the decision, the installation is. The way you find that person goes right back to everything we just covered. Reviews, ownership, longevity, whether they actually show up after the job is done. Let's get back to the third opinion story. 2 other companies claimed the heat exchanger had failed. I remember walking in, there was one furnace, and before I even reached for my analyzer, I asked her, "Hey, can you show me the photo they gave you? The one of the crack?" She handed me her phone. I looked at the picture. Then I looked back at the furnace. Looked back at the picture, something wasn't adding up. That wasn't her furnace. I don't know where that picture came from, I really don't, but it was not her unit. I also want to mention we're a trained dealer. The companies that came out before us were not. We work on these furnaces all the time. I know what I'm looking at. So I ran combustion analysis, checked CO at the supply registers, checked gas pressure, went through the heat exchanger myself. No crack. I told her straight up, I get paid commission too. If I thought you needed a new furnace, I'd tell you, but you don't. Keep in mind, the first company was there for maintenance. That's it. That company also claimed that replacing the heat exchanger on this 7-year-old furnace would cost about the same as a new furnace. Coincidence?
I think not!
And look, I'm not saying every company that diagnoses a heat exchanger is being dishonest. A cracked heat exchanger is a real thing, and it's a serious safety issue when it's actually there. If a company is handing you a $4,000 quote with a photo of somebody else's furnace and nothing to back it up, you are allowed to ask questions. I've had customers tell me more than once.
If someone had just explained that to me, I would have spent the extra money.
They weren't complaining about the price. They were frustrated that nobody took 5 minutes to actually walk them through what was happening in their own home. Here's something I believed for a long time. The technician's energy should be that they're there to educate you and make sure your comfort is the priority, not to sell you something. And look, most technicians I know genuinely care about their customers. Most companies are trying to do the right thing. This video isn't about assuming the worst. It's about making sure you know how to recognize the best. To me, options are key. A good technician gives you the information, explains the pros and cons, and lets you decide. Not a single quote with a deadline attached to it. They tell you what's happening, and then you make the call. That's how it should work. And here's something worth saying. The cheapest option isn't always the right one, and the most expensive option isn't always the right one either. Here's a real example based on prices I've personally seen. A capacitor replacement can be quoted anywhere from around $150 to $600 depending on the company. If the price is at the higher end, you should do some research before accepting the quote. Markup is part of every business. That's not the red flag. The red flag is when nobody can explain what actually failed, why it failed, and why it needs to be replaced. If a technician can walk you through all 3 of those things clearly, you know what kind of company you're working with. You're not hiring an HVAC company. You're hiring people you're trusting with one of the biggest investments in your home, and that relationship doesn't end when the truck leaves your driveway. A lot of people judge a company by how fast they can get a system in. Personally, I don't care if they finish 2 hours earlier than expected. What I care about is what happens after they leave. Did they register your warranty? Show you where your filter is and how often to change it? Walk you through the thermostat? Explain what a maintenance visit actually covers and why it matters? Will they actually answer the phone 2 years from now when your system needs attention? Some companies offer HVAC and plumbing and electrical all under one roof, and that convenience is real. One call, one company that already knows your home. But that's a bonus, not a requirement. But there's something else I'm going to get into in the next video. There are active lawsuits alleging price fixing among some of the largest HVAC manufacturers in the country. These are allegations denied by the manufacturers. Litigation is ongoing, but if you're shopping for a system right now and the numbers feel higher than you expected, that context matters. And now you know what to look for. You know the installer matters more than the brand. You know how to read reviews for patterns instead of stars. You know what a real diagnosis looks like and that you're allowed to ask to see the measurements. This video is about HVAC. These same rules apply to every contractor that walks through your front door. Plumber, electrician, roofer, any of them. At the end of the day, that's why I make these homeowner videos. I make them because I want you to feel confident the next time somebody hands you a quote. Anyways guys, if this video was helpful, make sure to drop a like and share your story. Let's help each other avoid the upsellers. I'll see you on the next call.